The logging industry and the Little Giant sawmill was basically how Dad made Dad's income and made his way in life. Then all of a sudden, I was just a little guy in elementary school, junior high, and Dad said he's going to go into the cattle business, and I don't remember the date. It was warm. It was the summer because these cattle liners showed up from Amarillo, Texas, and he had brought in 50 head of purebred Charolais cattle from Amarillo, Texas. I think they had the trucker told us they spent 2 or 3 nights on the road. You know, and you have to find a place to unload these cattle at night and feed them and water them and load them up the next morning. Anyway, they showed up in the yard, and I can still remember. It's interesting. You have these mental pictures, but I can remember the cattle liners pulling into the yard, and we had these big corrals, 8-foot high corrals, log corrals there, and they backed up to the chute and let the cattle off, and those cattle were so spooked, every one of them. They're huge. Those exotic cattle, they're big boned animals. They all jumped over and they were gone off into the bush, west Lord Doug's. And I can remember Dad telling me, so I'd go saddle up the old skid horse Topsy, and I think it took me about a week to find those cattle and get them all back. I had to go over and get Doug to help me, but he brought in 50 head of Charolais cattle. And then we began crossing them with a Hereford bull, and you'd get these tan-colored calves, and had the cows for years up there. Right?
So he was right on the leading edge of the importation of European cattle and whatnot.
Yeah. He certainly wasn't the first to bring Charolais cattle, exotic cattle into Alberta, but he was one of the first.
Yeah.
That would have been about 1956, 55, 56, somewhere in there. And I don't have a lot of pictures, Eric, of the cattle, but I got a few. There's a picture of the Little Giant sawmill. There's a couple of pictures of the cattle. That might have been like the first winter they were there, and you won't recognize this cowboy, but he's there. He's roping some of the calves. That's me. I was probably in about grade. I don't know. Old school teacher. I do everything by grades, but I was probably in grade 6 or 7, and I was out there roping the calves, and so that's just a picture of some of the cattle, and that's it was quite an experience, to tell you. So one of the first things I had to do was look after the morning chores with the cattle before, and Dad would always go up to the Quonset, start the school bus, bring it down, park it in front of the house, let it warm up in the wintertime. Well, and I would be out doing chores, and we had 15, 20 heifers that we kept back every year in the corral. And it was my job to water those heifers, and we had a great big stock tank, with a stock heater in it. And so I got tired of carrying these 5-gallon pails of water to fill that stock tank from a slough hole. So I got really ambitious one morning, and I chopped a big hole. And I opened the gate. These heifers can just come down here to get water, and they're not going to go anywhere because I feed them in the corral all the time. So then I did that, didn't tell Dad, and of course, jump on the school bus, come home, and there's a heifer, dead,
in the hole.
Fell in the hole, ice all around. Dad wasn't too impressed. And then I understood why I was hauling the water. So he made me go get the tractor and hook a chain to her. And the sawmill had a great big sawdust pile on off on the side was, when you're sawing the logs, all the sawdust fell down into a blower and blew it out into a big pile. Always remember Doug telling me about their boneyard on their place. Whenever an animal passed away or had a problem, something, they just chain around the leg and haul it out to the boneyard. Well, our boneyard was the sawdust pile, so I got the tractor and skidded the heifer up to covered her up with sawdust. The dogs did their digger out in the sawdust pile. So that was the cattle. We had the cattle for till I had left home, gone to go to university. David and Dad still had the cattle up there, and but then when he finally retired for the last, Dad retired several times. The last time he retired, I remember they sold all the cattle.